Okay, good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry, it's a little bit late. I apologize. Yeah, well, anything is fine. Thank you. Let's begin as everyone gets their breakfast going so we could end on time, whatever on time means. But the plan is over this week and next week to try to go through Hilchos Pesach, which officially is impossible. Thank you. The reason why you begin 30 days before Yontif preparing the halachas is because it comes from Hilchos Pesach, because Hilchos Pesach is vast. It's incredible halachas. However, we're going to try to narrow it down to the halachas that will be relevant to everyone, which will be usually the first year in Hilchos Pesach, you start with cleaning for Pesach. But because I'm sure many people are not going to be home, and they're going to be cleaning, they won't be cleaning, we're not going to start with there. So we're going to try to focus on the areas that are most relevant to everyone, which is going to be this week, we're going to do cosmetics and medications, which is probably the most asked question in all of Hilchos Pesach. Probably, I think that's a valid, assessment.
Should it be?
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get to everything. Especially we live in such a world, like it used to be, you open up like Svarim, like they're talking about kashrus of products and okay, there are still those yidden, but I think for the bulk of us, we buy things with hechsherim and we move on in life. But cosmetics and medications are confusing. So we're going to do that this week. Next week, I actually like to take a deep dive into mechiras chametz, and that's actually something that's relevant to almost everyone. First of all, minig of klal yisrael is to sell their chametz, and the shayla is, what should you sell? What shouldn't you sell? If you're going to be home, if you're not going to be home, how should you do the mechira? Many different ways of doing things, and as always, understanding what's going on is extremely important. So that is the game plan. I just want to start for one moment. Chodesh Nisan is on the horizon. There's an Aruch HaShulchan that we always like to share. It's an incredible Aruch HaShulchan. Aruch HaShulchan tells us that why was Nisan chosen as to be the Rosh HaChadashim? We just said Shabbos Chodesh. Why was Nisan chosen? We know the months are counted from Nisan as much as the year is counted from Tishrei. Says the Aruch HaShulchan. You know why? It's an incredible. If you don't know this, then we have to. If you knew it, then it's a quick chazar. He says, you know why Nisan was chosen? The Mitzrayim worship the sheep. Shuroisha Mazalis is the top of all the constellations. Bafudas Geulah, whatever that means. Umazal Tleh is Mishamish B'Chodesh Nisan. So Nisan is the sheep in the, whatever, astrology. Uparoi Samach al Koiche Umazali. And Paroi relied on this mazel. Ulachain, and therefore, Avki b'makas barad, comes makas barad. What happens? Nishbar liboy, his heart is broken until he says, Hashem atzadik, v'ami yarshayim. But what happens? Nope, Nachamol, he goes weiter. And then comes makas chayshech. And then, why? Why? So we all know because Hashem hardened Paro's heart. But Hashach gives a little more taste of it. He says, you know why? Sha'oz karvo yimei anisa. You can almost envision that they're going through all the makkahs, they're getting destroyed, and but then they're like, okay, but we're almost at Nisan. We're almost there. And with Nisan, you know what's going to happen? The mazel of the tleh, the sheep, it's going to help us. Upatach al mazali shebechodesh hazeh. They trusted in their mazel. And that's what Hashem says to Moshe, "Chodesh hazeh lochem rosh chadashim kloimar." HaChodesh hazeh, this month, Shapari Mamtin Allah, the month that Pari is waiting for, you lochem, to you, Klal Yisrael, Rosh Chadashim, Shabzet Titbarer, Kein Mamish B'Masalos. This is Mamish, the ultimate hit to Mitzrayim. Is literally on this one month, on the month that they're busy waiting for, on the month that Paro busy says over there, this is all going to work for them. Comes like Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem says, nothing doing. Bashemu alikim b'shamayim imal eretz mitachas ein oid v'Yisrael are me'am segula, and therefore rishanu lachem l'chadshei hashana. Just a fascinating thing to realize as Nisan is on the horizon, and as we know that Nisan is the Chodesh HaGeulah, and we understand a little bit of the flavor of what's going on over here. Hopefully, it'll give us a little more of understanding and a little bit of a desire and a drive to want to learn about Pesach, learn about Nisan, and let's do it right. So let's begin. And today's breakfast has been sponsored as a schus for Shleim of Cyril Bas Freda Yentl, Pesach Shachal Yisrael. All the Limud HaTorah should be an incredible schus. And with that, there's really two ways of preparing for Pesach. Both of them are equally important. One way is preparing what we just said to know what are the inyanim Pesach. What's going on? We have to stop, as we always say, we have to get out of preschool. And if our whole Pesach is parah and pajamas, we got a problem. Now, parah and pajamas is certainly a highlight. There's no question, a very, very big highlight. But and maybe they might have, as we spoke last year, we spoke before Pesach last year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dorei. Spoke in Shabbos Hakadol, how parah and pajamas perhaps might bring out the whole lave of what we're doing of Igata Levincha. It's very important. But then there's another way of preparing for Pesach, which is in the halacha. And many have remarked that, maybe our parents or grandparents for sure grew up in a world that like everything was usser and everything needed to be, scrubbed and cleaned. And maybe we grew up in a little bit of the exact opposite world. That might be true. It might be somewhere in between. But as always, let's learn what the halacha is and let's understand what's going on. So when it comes to Pesach, first thing to realize is people make a terrible mistake, and they think that if certain items are kosher year round, are kosher Pesach. Now, obviously, you know about the Isser Chametz. It's not what I mean. I mean even things like toothpaste, things that maybe are mouthwashes, things that we all are maybe are maker like the Hartzvi or Tzvi Pesach Frank, that famously the things that you don't ingest, that you expel, things that you don't want to eat, where many are makel throughout the year, and therefore throughout the year, I'm answering your question right now that many people have. Is that why is toothpaste? I don't understand it. The whole year I eat whatever toothpaste I want, and maybe you've once in your life seen that a lot of these toothpastes are really problematic. They're loaded with glycerin and other items which are completely not kosher. Yet during the year we eat it, but on Pesach we don't. So some people say, "Oh, this is part of the whole mistake that we have, and it's all mutter." No, that's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Very important to know. It's because the Hartzvi of Tzvi Pesach Frank, when he said his halacha, he's referring year round, which is stam kashrus. But on Pesach, there's many differences, which we definitely don't have time to discuss right now. Of them being the rules of bittul are different on Pesach. Of them being there's an Isser Hana of Pesach. Of them being that in order to make something kosher, there's two levels. There's something called the Inui Royu Lachilas Adam, and then something called the Inui Royu Lachilas Kelev. One thing is humans don't eat it, and one thing is animals don't eat it. Now, as you can imagine, regardless how much we are very pet friendly, of course, and we love puppies, but not when they're in the hallway of shul. Not when they're in the hallway of shul. Different discussion. I'm not. There are shuls that are pet friendly. We're not. But what should I tell you? When you're not expecting a little puppy on your legs, it's interesting. But moving right along, Inurei Lachilas Kelev is certainly a higher or lower, depending which way you're going, barometer. The Inurei Lachilas Adam. And Pesach needs Inuroi Lachilas Kelev to make something inedible. So that just gives you just a little bit of a understanding that not everything is created equal. That's really detail number one. Detail number two is we're going to draw a line in the sand right now between items that are ingested and items that are not ingested. And this is a rule really for all of Hilchos Pesach, which is extremely, extremely important. This could help you in kashering. This could help you in cleaning. This could help you in anything, which is, of course, there's an isser, and I'm trying to balance the broad strokes of giving you a little bit of flavor of the halacha with the bare bone, what we need to know, which we'll hopefully get to. But of course, there's an isser of owning chametz, an isser bal yirah bal yimatzeh, and there's very, very grand isurim, of course. But things that don't go into your mouth, and areas that don't go into mouth, we're much more lenient upon, because once they're royal achilas kelev, like we just saw, you don't have to be concerned with them. And that's the reason why when it comes to cleaning, really, to scrub behind the couches and all these things is not so important. But on the flip side, to maybe be cognizant of toys that might come onto the table, that's something you definitely have to be worried about. As much as you don't have to necessarily care to, where you put your milk container down, that the shelf is lined. Lining is not a halacha, absolutely not, because nothing could penetrate the milk bottle. It's just not possible. But if you want to know if I'm putting something on my table or on my plate, that's going to be a different story, because you always have to be concerned, because the reason is very simply, on Pesach, there's no rules of bittul, which means if there's the teeniest little crumb in the world that falls into your food on Pesach, falls into anything, it's a problem. So it's a balance. You want to know, do you have to sit there and scrub out your toys? The answer is not yes. The answer is not no. The answer is it depends. If your toys come on the table, this is not a chinuch shear. But if your toys come on the table, then you have to be careful. Why? Because yeah, maybe the kid ate a cookie, and that's actually a very, very serious concern. But on the other hand, if it's not coming on the table, then who cares? Let if there might be a crumb inside of it. That doesn't bother me. In a similar vein, it comes to medications and cosmetics. Of course, there's the items that we ingest, there's pills, and there's other medications, etc. And then there's cosmetics that go onto our body that don't go, well, they might go into our body. They don't go through our mouth. They don't go through our mouth. And that's a very different level. So, with that being said, we have lots of different items, but hopefully we can start getting a flavor of the items we have to be more concerned about. Anytime you're going to be asking a shayla, if it's something that going into your mouth, we're going to be weighing it with a much higher level versus something that is not. So let's get there. I don't know why this comes to mind, but this is also a classical one. I just want to point it out. Dish towels. Dish towels. Even though you wipe your dishes with them, I think they go into the washing machine, and I think they're washed with detergent, I hope, something of the sort. And therefore, you don't need special ones for Pesach. It might, sometimes it's like a good thing once every few years to buy new dish towels. It's true. Similarly with tablecloths. You do not need special kosher Pesach tablecloths, assuming that they're washed. Assuming that they're washed because there's nothing on them. And again, Yisrael Kadeshimim. And the Mishmur already says that we're not mezalzel any minog. Mishmur talks about people that are mamish scraping their walls. I don't know what exactly was going on in their walls, but they were scraping their walls. I'm not sure. And we all know the stories of the Yidden that are with the toothbrush on between the cracks in the floor. So Yisrael Kadeshimim, and we're not mezalzel. But on the other hand, we have to know what's the halacha.
And
So when
items have stains that never come out.
stains that haven't come out, it might be beautiful, it might be ugly. It depends what level stain it is. It might be the next Picasso painting. But the bottom line is, there's no concern lehalacha on it. And then sometimes these things are important to balance, as really we're about to get to. There's also a difference between today, we're 3 weeks before Pesach, and what's going to happen, on the second day of Pesach. 3 weeks before Pesach, we're going to be much more chomer. Why? Because you want to know today, what's the story with your perfume and cologne? Let's just dive right in. So we all know that there's a chumrah. It is a chumrah. Now you'll know that it's a chumrah, not a din, of Ramesha. The Ramesha was concerned, and he writes, the Russians in the army, you know what they do? They take these perfumes, they take these colognes, they denature them. There is denatured alcohols inside of them. They distill it, they boil it up, and you could get out the alcohol and you could drink it. Reminds us of maybe someone in a yeshiva that doesn't have any access to alcohol, and he's doing whatever he can. He's drinking the mouthwash. Probably have different issues before he gets drunk, or some college campuses that have certain stories. But that's what Ramesha writes. And because that says Ramesha, you have to be makbid in all these perfumes, colognes, and whatnot, and you have to look: do they have chametz derivatives in them? That's a chumrah of Ramesha, and really one of the big milos of the famous Ray Blumenkrantz's book that maybe we all grew up on and were wondering what happened to it was based on this premise, was researching what are the ingredients down to the type of alcohol that it is. Is it an alcohol that could be distilled or whatever these words are, and get it out? So now, you want to know, does one need to be makbid on this? So the answer is, it's a chumrah. It's a chumrah. So how do we weigh chumras? Well, we weigh chumras. Depends on where you're holding, and depends when you're holding. You want to know 3 weeks before Pesach, is it a nice thing to do a good Google search and look it up? Everything is online. Everything. Which is, Ray Blumenkrantz's book is the last item not online. He has a deeper level. No, he has a deeper level of research. You could, I think, buy it as I think he has an app or something. You could buy it for like $5. It's nothing crazy. But so you want to know, should one spend a few minutes and look it up? Yeah. What does it hurt? What does it hurt? Instead of spending 5 minutes or even 15 minutes of doing other stupidities on our computers, spend 15 minutes and look it up. So it's a chumrah. Now, you want to know if someone's going to call up on Erev Yontif and they're going to say, my wife wants to know, could she use her whatever? The answer is it's mutter, midina. So it's a very important balance. And that's why I'm enjoying giving this year 3 weeks in advance. Because when it's going to come down to the Shayla on Erev Yantif, we're going to be making on a lot of these things. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try today with 3 weeks in advance notice to look things up, especially it's just time. I will be honest, half of the Shaylas over Pesach, I happen to just sit on my computer looking them up. I download all the different guides. The Stark has a guide, CRC has a guide. Who else has one? The OU has a guide. Good. I have the 3 guides. I download them. and they're PDFs, and I said they're searching them, which is great. I'm happy to do it. Ramesha Feinstein used to get a call every Friday from a Russian lady asking Ramesha, what time is candlelighting? What time is candlelighting? You can imagine, you're sure not calling Ramesha Feinstein. Every week, pick up the phone, oh, tell her candlelighting, oh, good Shabbos. Someone said, Ramesha, he said, what do you mean? This is what this woman needs. So he does it. So I'm a happy camper to sit there and research and certain things which are easy. But my point is we all could do it. Everyone, again, if you're holding at that level that there's no technology in your availability, I certainly understand it. But 3 weeks before Yontif, certainly things should be looked into, and that's really perfumes and cologne. So what's the halacha? The halacha is: does one have to be makbid? No, you definitely don't have to be makbid. It's a chumrah. It's a chumrah. Should one be makbid? I don't see why with 3 weeks to Yontif one shouldn't spend a few minutes researching. You want to know. And sometimes this is what happens. You got the one. There's a list of 4,000 items, and then you're going through, and it's this flavor, and all the different things, and somehow we always get the one that's one off. Okay, so in that case, then you know that it's not usser. It's not usser. That's perfumes. That's colognes. Certain deodorants are in a certain category. Now there is a shiloh I will mention of lotions. Lotions. What are lotions? Lotions are things that go on your body. So what's the shiloh? The shiloh is that are you getting hana from chametz? That's one shiloh. Other shiloh is, do we say sicha kishtia? A very famous sugya that when something gets absorbed into you, la halacha, that might be called ingesting it, and therefore la halacha does one have to be makbid? The answer is no. One does not have to be makbid la halacha. Again, it's a chumrah, and I'm going to say the same thing. You want to know, you're going to call up in 3 weeks. You want to know what the story is? The story is going to be that all these things are going to be mutter. But you want to know that category, that will say there
Lotion
is
on your hands, but you're touching food.
no, but again, if there's so much lotion in your hands that you're cutting up the steak with it on it, then get out of the kitchen. So we'll get to those in a moment. We'll get to those in one moment. So again, the first level is going to be colognes, deodorants, hairspray, mousse, shaving lotion. I'm reading a list over here. Sunscreen. These are the items that generally have denatured alcohol, and these are going to be the items that it's a chumrah not to use it. Now the next level is going to be things that don't even go to that level, which is soaps and conditioners and different makeups, eyeliners and foundations and things like that. That's going to really be no problem at all. So that's
In fact, right now they're not really like those yellow, like sunscreen. It's not really like
so good. So really the split I just made is the chiddush of Ramosha, which is that certain of these items you could potentially boil them up and get the alcohol out of them. I'm not a scientist. Oh, so that's this is the chiddush of Ramosha. This is the chiddush, and everyone writes. Klal Yisrael, many are makbid, and the reason is because Ramosha won the war, and Ramosha came out with this chumrah. Everyone took it on. You're 100% right. 100% right. It's be'etzem. It's complete pella. Be'etzem. I can't ask that on Ramosha, but Ramosha knew that. And he even writes. You look in. Who writes it the most? You look at Blumenkrantz's book. He writes it in nice English. He basically just transcribes the Tshuva Ramosha in English. Apparently, there were Russian soldiers, Bisman Ramosha, that he heard this is what they were doing. And therefore, he was very nervous. And he was nervous that it's true that it's one step removed. And usually in halacha, we don't do that. What is it now? Especially, I'm not no scientist. If any of us try to do this, we probably blow up our house or burn ourselves. We barely can make macaroni and cheese. And, we're busy. Okay, but you're 100% correct. Now, let's go to medications. Medications, the first thing is oh, lipstick. Very good. Lipstick is an important one. Lipstick, there's three levels. The first thing is almost everyone agrees you should wipe whether you can use it or not. Meaning, maybe right now we're going to say to try to look it up, but if in 3 weeks' time you don't, you should definitely wipe off the top of it because that was being used with your mouth with chametz. Not you. If anyone here is wearing lipstick, we should have a conversation and we can get professional help. So if you, it's actually funny. A lot of rabbanim will say, cut off the tip of the lipstick, and you tell it to women, they get all upset. You cut the tip, you might as well throw the whole thing out. You need to have the. Okay, no one here played with lipstick. I guess I was the only one. But you need to have the whatever that thing's called. So you wipe it off. Okay, Givaldi, good. That's step number one. Step number two is many are more makbid on lipsticks because it's on your lips. It's on your lips, and lamaisa you do eat it. However, the real reality is it definitely falls into the category that these things are not really roy lachila, and one could certainly medina be makel. But I would say of all the things we're going to talk about, lipstick is probably the one that you actually should spend a few moments on. Perfumes, colognes, all these things. These are like, okay, maybe perhaps like you were pointing out over here. Who knows how to boil these things up? But lipstick is mamish going in your mouth. That is something that one should be makbid on, which is similar. I think one of the things that we've all lost our gushes for is the paper plates with the hechsher. I'm not eating the plate, Rabbi. Like, come on, you're crazy, right? But or the paper towels with the hechsher. I'm not eating it. But that's a mistake. It's a very big mistake. Why is it a mistake? Because when you make schnitzel, yeah. Because when you make schnitzel, often you do put it boiling hot straight on a paper plate or straight on a napkin. And if that napkin, paper towel, whatever it is, has cornstarch on it, with a lot, which a lot of them do, that's a serious paper. Yeah, I'm very good. That's exactly what we're explaining. A paper. That's actually a serious problem. It's not like, oh no, that's a real problem. Okay, it's kidneys and it's a minog. Lamaisa, we could say all that. Lamaisa, we're not kidneys. We are Ashkenazim, and therefore that is actually something that, yes, paper items one should be makbid on 100%. Now, makbid just means two things: either buying with a hechsher, or you don't want to get ripped off on buy with action, no problem. Spend 5 minutes on a computer and look up which brands have the powder coated and which brands don't. It's really not complicated. But plastic ones are not an issue. So this is one of the things that when we just say, oh, all these things are chumras, are silly, we make terrible mistakes. And I've seen people make this mistake. So it is important to note is that paper items that or the other answer is, okay, don't put boiling hot food in it. Okay, if you could be cognizant of that, ein hacha nami. That's as it goes to napkins, paper towels, and things like that. Which, by the way, I'll just point out in a similar vein. When it comes to kashering, which I don't think we're really going to talk about, there is always an eitzah just to be careful, but we're not careful, so that's why we kasher. And you want to know my counter? Yes, if you always put down something, you always put down, and before you put the pot down. But you're right. There's nothing. There's no concern. But are you going to do that? Or if something spills, I won't eat it. Okay. Or are you going to do it? And that's really where it comes from. We cover everything. People, what do we cover? We're covering it because we're not careful. We're not careful. Okay. With that being said, that's lipstick. That's paper goods. Now, let's go into pills. Pills, the first disclaimer is an extremely important disclaimer. If anyone is on any medication, and any medication that's a suffix, any level of suffix, that it's a necessity, which usually are prescribed medications, you never stop taking medication without consulting a doctor. And I know it sounds silly what I'm saying, but just from the fact that every single publication writes that, I'm assuming there are people that have made terrible mistakes. So never stop. We cannot, and that's, by the way, a real chayla, an elderly person or someone with a real disease doesn't be elderly. Shem should save everyone. Lamaisa, you can't stop taking medication even if it has chametz in it. So that's a extremely important disclaimer. Disclaimer number one. Disclaimer number two. Sometimes we get so fixated. Are the pills kosher Pesach? Great. There's a whole area of halacha whether you're allowed to take medicine on Shabbos and Yontif. Really? Yes. Isn't this a derabanan? So I know it's a derabanan, but we have to be aware of that. And Hamzi, this is one of the unique kulas of Yontif Sheni. Unique kulas of Yontif Sheni is that we're more makel on refuah, perhaps the only kula. But that's a second thing, a second disclaimer. With that being said, is when it comes to medications, really the children's medicines pose a real problem. And this is something you should spend a few minutes before Yontif. The classical Tylenol, Advil, acetaminophen, ibuprofen, the classical grape, cherry, whatever flavor it is, those are a problem. I didn't say any of them are a problem. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. So yes, it's a matter of spending an extra $5 and buying the one that isn't. And they have all the list. The CVS brand is this, and this brand is that. Great. So instead of waiting until the second day of Yontif and the kid has a fever and he's at 103, and now you want to know, and it's true, at that point, you're right, we're going to be makel, but these things have flavorings. Anything with a flavor means you're enjoying it, and even for children, and therefore one should be makbid. That I happen to find, that disclaimer I just said, That's the most common one.
Melatonin.
That's what's all anything that our kids take because the kids' medications all have flavorings in them. Now, by the way, almost every single one they have ones that are fine. And part of the reason is, I'll give you a little bit of the background, is that chametz is gluten. Now, that's not exactly accurate what I just said, because there are derivatives that are not. But because we live in a very, very gluten conscious world, many, many, if not most of these medications actually don't have chametz. Actually, don't have chametz. At most, what they have is kidneys, which were makel for a chayla. Now, how do you know that? How does any of them know that? So that just means spending 5 minutes and looking on these lists to see what it is. But kidneys were makel for a chayla. We're going to be makel for a child, for a chayla she'ein b'saikana, which is a child, and therefore you have to look these things up. Those are, I find, to be the biggest challenges. Again, children's medications, children's supplements, things with taste. Those are the things. Adult medications usually are not a problem. If you're still taking every time you get a fever, you're downing a bottle of grape flavored Tylenol. We also should speak because that's not normal. It's time to learn how to take a pill. Time to learn to take a pill, and I'm certified trainer. I have to teach you how to take a pill. I can help anyone if they want, but yeah. Oh, yeah, this mamish, all these things. That's why we're 3 weeks before Yontif. This is not the first Pesach we're having, and therefore, go and look these things up. Anything without a flavor, pills you don't have to worry about. Anything without a flavor you don't have to worry about. Um, unless even the candy coated pills are usually not a problem. They don't really make them anymore. I think real Advil Brown still makes them. Um, and Tums are a massive shayla. We're going to get to Tums in a moment. Tums happens to be a massive shayla. We're going to get to in a moment. Gel capsules are not a problem. However, they're a kosher problem. They're not a chametz problem. Just this is a PSA, a public service alert. Why? It's made out of gelatin. It's made out of gelatin. Now, they're not all made out of gelatin. Some are made out of fish gelatin, synthetic gelatin nowadays are actually very common. However, we actually don't know. So gel capsules in general, you should only take if you can't get another medication, which often is the case. Often it's prescribed medications come in gel capsules like you can do. But often it's just because that's the one you took off the shelf. You took the Tylenol with this, just take the other one.
The liquid gels I find for migraine, I think it's better.
So again, that would be a type of case. If a migraine is a debilitating matzib, and that's what's going to work, Givaldic. But in general, we should try to stay away from gel capsules if possible. I didn't just say it's ulcer. I said we try to stay away from it. Now, liquid and chewable medications often might have this concern that they are kidneys, and the kidneys, the answer is going to be that it's mutter for a chayla. If you're not a chayla, it is not mutter. Tums are a massive problem. Tums are a massive problem. I should say that 3 times. The reason is because most Tums are not on any of these lists. Now, why not? I did read a whole science onto one of them. I don't really know. They do make other brands. Problem is, people say they don't work as well. People say they don't work as well. They do make a kosher one, which they does work, but you can't. I'm just telling you from personal experience. It's not like on Amazon getting it overnight type of thing. It's like sold in kosher groceries that you have to get before they sell out. So if one is a Tum consumer, which Pesach happens to be a high level of Tum consumer time, then it's the type of thing that one should be mindful of. That regular Tums, generally, we try to stay away from, especially they're flavored. I think all flavored. What? It's a problem. It's a problem. It might even be chametz. That's the problem. The problem is they can't actually verify all of them. If it was kidneys, we would be makel, because often heartburn, you're going to put you at a level of a chayla, and it's not going to be concerned, especially for a pregnant woman, which often is where people need Tums and things like that. Lamaisa, Tums are very schwer. I'm not weighing in. Every different kashrus agency, some have a list that a few brands are okay. Some say that they're all not okay. All I'm going to say is probably the best is to buy the kosher ones beforehand and not have to worry about it. When it comes to selling things, we'll end with that. Give me one more minute. We'll end with when it comes to selling things. That's basically.
Change the menu now. You have to change the menu so you don't need heartburn.
Yeah, okay. For those diets, yeah, as simple as that was, yeah, no big deal. No one gains weight over Pesach. What's the big deal? What are you eating? 45 pounds of matzah a night. Next, Toothpaste, as I mentioned. By the way, it's such a silly thing. You want to know, are there kulas? Yes, maybe there are kulas because we didn't start with the Hartzvi. Some of them, and I don't remember which one, and I didn't look it up this year, and often it changes per year. I remember there's Colgate and there's Crest that we all know. One of them is fully kosher Pesach, and one of them is fully not kosher Pesach because it has derivatives of chametz in it. So just look it up and buy the right one. It's very simple. It's not simple when we don't remember these things. Okay. Okay. That's when it comes to mouthwash is similar. Mouthwash is similar. Again, these things going in your mouth, and you do swallow it at some level. You do swallow it at some level. That's really all your cosmetics and all your medications. So if we were to put this in a very nice, simple list, it's as follows. Things that don't go into your mouth are all going to be at most a chumrah. At most a chumrah. Things that go into your mouth often are a problem. But what's the problem? It doesn't mean you can't take anything. Number one, if you're a real chayla, of course. Number two is it just means you have to spend a few moments looking it up. It could be often things will develop into a story that will be megal even without it. But the lechatchila is to look these things up. Every one of these kashrus organizations put out wonderful lists, and we look it up. And again, medications that have no taste are perfectly fine. Medications that have a bitter taste, similarly, liquid medications with a bitter taste is a little bit of a machlekes. Okay, we'll leave it as that. And again, the children's medications is usually the big challenge. Before Yontif, spend a few minutes looking it up. Again, if one doesn't, and you're going to call up on the first day of Cholamoid, often we're going to be makel if you can't get something else. But the lechatchila is part of the preparations for Yontif is to buy these things. When it comes to selling things, next week we're going to talk about chassan and chametz in general. But anything that we spoke about just now, none of this is going to. Again, everyone has their hummus. Someone just told me that they're makbid. They don't sell sauces that have derivatives of wheat in it. Okay, different levels of chumras, different levels of chumras. Most people only, if I shouldn't say that, most people sell chametz. There's no most. It's like, right, you learn Hilchas Nida, like every woman. There's no most in life, right? But most people, many people sell everything, as we're going to talk about next week. Some people are makbid not to sell chametz gomer, which is like mizoynes products, and there are those who are makbid not to, sell even things with wheat in it. But all the items we're talking about today would not be even considered in that, and it's not something you have to even be mindful before Yontif. I'm going to end with there's two items that we're not endorsing vaping or any of these things, but when people call up on Yontif, what they're supposed to do, it's very, very schwer. It's very schwer, very, very schwer. I don't know anyone that's makel on the classical vapes. They make kosher Pesach ones. Vaping. They make kosher Pesach ones. Now people want to say, no, what do you mean? But smoking, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. They make kosher Pesach ones. They do. Again, it just means getting it before Yontif. Zins, I don't have an answer on. Last year, I spent a lot of time trying to get one of the more senior Rabbanim to weigh in on it, and no one wanted to weigh in on it, and they all said stay away from it. So I'm just going to parrot those words. What?
There is a kosher brand. It's not. It's kidney.
Was there?
Yeah. Shabbos.
The vaping, the issue is it's not stam inhaling. Stam inhaling, like smoking, is just air. The vape, there's a liquid. And that liquid, if there's a kashrus issue, the liquid is going in your mouth and you taste it. And that's really where, what? Yeah, I agree with you. You're saying that's the reason why it shouldn't be a problem. Okay. If you but it's a chiddush. It's a chiddush that we have something that if you ingest it straight, you would die. Yet you ingest it in the smallest forms and you quote unquote enjoy it. So that's the problem. And to say that is going to be okay is very, very schwer. And therefore, really, and Ari will mimic your words. You have 3 weeks before Yontif. Anyone who vapes, you could stop. You could stop. If you can't, then go and buy the kosher, the basic ones. And zins are a similar story. They definitely have, I believe they all have kidneys in them. Zins. I believe they all have kidneys in it. Now, so you're gonna say kidneys, right? We're makbid on kidneys. Now, if you're a level of chayla, okay, it's a different story. You're right. Then we'll go back to Ari, and we should take 3 weeks. We should deal with their problems.